Okay, we'd really like to, on behalf of the family, thank you all for joining us here to celebrate Debbie's life. To me, she was such a wonderful person in so many ways. You know, as my wife, my partner, really my best friend for 56 years. She put up with me, you know, a high maintenance husband. She was also a devoted mom to Jason and Jeremy, loving grandmother to Malia, Bella, and Riley, and really try to maintain contact with our extended family. She was an aunt, and through a marriage, really worked hard to try to stay in touch because to her family was so important. And she was also a loyal friend to so many people in her life. For all those reasons, of course I'm totally biased, but I really felt like she was pretty special. Okay, let me see if this works. Okay. So before we get started, I wanted to just give everybody a brief overview of our marriage, and trying to cram 56 years into 3 minutes is, well, I'll give it a try. So I broke it out into 3 parts: our courtship, an Italian adventure, and here in San Diego. So our courtship. I was assigned to a submarine out here in November of 1968. A really good friend of mine had been assigned to the same submarine that I was on, that I was going to. And so when I told him I was coming out, he said, "Hey, we have a party coming up after you get out here. Do you want to date?" And so since I didn't know anybody in San Diego, I said, "Sure, why not?" So it ended up, he was dating Debbie's roommate. So our first date was totally a planned date. We pick her up, we go to this party, and that was kind of, you know, nothing promised beyond that. But then a week or so later, I find out that all of the submarine officers in San Diego, they used to, every Christmas, they'd have this big submarine ball. And it's the real women dress up in long gowns. The officers all wear dress blues. This one was at the Del Coronado. It was a big deal. So again, since she was the only female I knew in San Diego, I called her up and what can I say? Called her up and asked her, and thank goodness she said sure. So we go to the ball, and that's December. I guess it might have been not that bad because she invited me to go to her home to spend Christmas up in Redlands, 2 hours away from here. So, we've been dating about 6 weeks, something like that. So anyway, we start dating, and then through the end of 69, or 68 rather, get into 69, and in March, the submarine I was on gets sent to the Far East. So we were gone for 7 months. In the meantime, she this is back before no Zooms, no internet connection, handwriting, right? She writes a lot of letters. I don't write very much, which she never let me forget. But anyway, we come back in September. Somewhere between September and the end of the year, I proposed. And she said yes. At that point, I didn't know it, but I was the luckiest guy around, So we get engaged, we get married on the end of January, and in the meantime, while I was in Westbeck, she entered the bridesmaid honeymoon contest. Any of you familiar with that? So anyway, all the Bridesmaids magazine subscribers, I guess, submit their name, and I don't know what else she did, but she gets picked. So we get 2 free first-class tickets from San Diego or from Los Angeles to the East Coast, 2 weeks of cars, 2 weeks of hotels. So that was our honeymoon. It was a good thing because I was so poor, we might have been able to go to La Jolla for a weekend. So that's the gown that she wore to the ball. That was 2020. I think she was pretty proud that she still fitted it, you know. The girls, you guys remember that. That was their wedding. So the officers there were the officers of the submarine with me. Oops. And there we are. So we flew into New York first class. The only time in our marriage we flew first class. Landed in New York, spent a few days, drove up to Boston, spent a few more days, then drove up to Vermont skiing, and then we came home. So that was the end of our courtship, marriage, and honeymoon. So then I go back to the submarine, and this is now 1970. So we're doing submarine ops out of San Diego, which means generally half of the time you're in port doing repair work. The other half, when you're doing local ops, you go out Monday, you come back Friday. When in between on that, we also had another short deployment. But during that year, my commanding officer was really interested in getting me to stay and try to become a career naval officer. So at the time, I was going to get out in a few years. So he sat me down and said, "Hey, I'm interested in you becoming a career officer." So I didn't know any better. So I don't know exactly the conversation, how it went, but I think basically it boiled down to, well, what can you offer me? What do you have to offer me? And he said, how about 3 years, short duty, Naples, Italy, and if you sign up for 20 years. So I go home and talk to Debbie, and we say, why not? And so that's how our Italian adventure started. 71 to 74. And in addition to, it's like Yogi Berra, right? He says, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. Right? So the fork in the road was either I accept his offer, or I don't accept it, and we would not be here today if I had not accepted the offer. So anyway, so that was life-changing. The other two life-changing events during our stay in Naples, one, Jason was born. That's our bambino. And this, at the time, obviously, when you have your first child, that's life-changing, right? Well, I don't know. For us, it was. But it also made us realize that if I stayed in the Navy for 20 years, most of that would be spent at sea, and most of that, most of that would be on a ship. If you're on a ship, half of the time, if you're in San Diego, half the time you're in Westpac, in the Far East. The other half of the time when you're at home, you're doing what they call weekly ops. So you go out on Monday, come back Friday. So essentially 75% of the time, you're not at home. I would not be at home. So when we talked about that, it was pretty clear that was not the kind of family we wanted. So I decided to not stay for the 20 years, and we got out, and I'll follow it later. But the other really significant event was Debbie. Can you see that?
Yeah.
She established a really close relationship to the matriarch of this family here. This was in 1972. So because of that bond, for one thing, while we were in Naples, knowing Immaculata is her name, and she didn't speak English. So Debbie really jumped in and learned Italian. And she was like, learning Italian to her was like riding a bike. You never forget. We'd go back 20 years later and she'd be jumping right in and speaking Italian. So I never learned. But anyway, she kept in touch with Immaculata, birthdays, holidays, and her two daughters, or their two daughters, both married, and they each had a son and a daughter. So now Immaculata had 4 grandchildren. And back in 2014, I think, the 4 grandkids came to visit us. And they spent the week, 10 days here. And so we got to know the parents, their daughters, and now their grandkids. And that 3 years, that relationship, the 3 years we spent in Naples, at the time we didn't realize it, but looking back 10, 15 years later, it just colored our whole life. It made it so much richer because the friends we had, the food we ate, you know, the places we visited, it was all colored by those 3 years. So it was so fortunate that things turned out that well. Oh, and then the oldest daughter, the oldest granddaughter rather, they had their first child. So now we know Immaculata's great-grandson, Alberto. So that's neat. And we haven't met him yet, but hopefully we will. So we left, decided to leave the Navy, left to come back to San Diego. You can see here, 74 to present, it's kind of a blur, but you know, Jeremy was born, I went to graduate school, Jeremy was born, began a 30-year career in computer software. Boys grew up, pretty soon we're empty nesters, and then we're grandparents. So here we are today. Throughout her life, she had many passions. You see them here, cooking and baking. All things Italian, and it goes back to the 3 years we spent in Naples. Of course, the Padres, art, but overall, her number one priority was always family. That was her main passion. So there she is. And this is how we saw her for so many years, so many hours. She's in the kitchen, showing her love and caring for family and friends through the food she prepares, or she's prepared. And it's, over the years, you know, her desire to really do good food really got us going, and we all became foodies. Eating is a real true pleasure in life, and she led us to it. These were her heroines. You know them, right? And the one on the left, Martha Stewart, where's Candy? There she is. Candy knows what that was. Martha Stewart came out to the Costco at Carlsbad for a book signing. So this is, you go out and you get in line. Debbie got up, I think, at 5. Got in line at 6 for the signing. I think it started at 9 or 10. But she was not the first, but she was like 5th or 6th in line. You can verify that, but that was her passion. I mean, she just loved that stuff. And Ina, she got later on, she started really following her, and we have every one of her cookbooks. There's another one coming out, and she has a biography also. So, needless to say, she was passionate about food, and all the kids went with it. And this is her sweet spot. A lot of good food with family. She just loved that. She lived for that. And she would, maybe not so much as we all aged, but boy, early on, she'd be up until 2, 3 in the morning getting ready for the next day, doing little things for the table, or I don't know, I would give up and go to bed. So. But the next morning, everything was in great shape. Baking. There's Tyler. Huge gingerbread man. She loved to do those. Jeremy's birthday cake, 28. Life is great. And the one on the right, it's kind of hard to see, but it's a bunch of cookies that she made in the form of letters that she packed in a box and sent to Malia on her birthday. So those spell out Malia. So all things Italian. I went through our period in Naples for 3 years. And so whenever we went to Europe, you know, the first stop had to always be Naples to see our friends, okay? We had to do that. In fact, the last trip we took over there, we went to Amsterdam. And of course, Naples is on the way to Amsterdam, right? So we had to go back, see Immaculata and all our friends there. And then we flew to Amsterdam. So while we were there, you know, just checking out our old stomping ground. Obviously, we had to keep going back to museums and churches with art. And of course, seeing Immaculata, I mean, when those two got together, it was like really mother and daughter, in a sense, a really, really close friend. It was really neat to see the bond. And I think that's a big plate of some kind of Italian dessert. And then, so in addition to just sightseeing in Naples, meeting old friends, just doing some sightseeing, this one happened to be, where's my phone? There it is. That one happens to be Lake Como. Sitting there, watching the sunset, glass of wine. Life was good. Life was good. And then also, we, through her brother Paul, met a number of other Italians that we became very close with. They lived close to Milan. And so the last one there, in the lower right corner, is us. As they say, trekking. We say hiking, they say trekking. But that's up in the Italian Alps, where we climbed up a mountain. We had what they call these refugios that serve like 2 dishes, and but they were amazing. So that's, for her, she was in heaven when we were doing this. And then the Padres. So really, she started, her interest in baseball, I think I mentioned, started when she signed Jason up for Little League. And, you know, slowly we got to be Padre fans, and she just decided, okay, she's gonna join us. And she became as passionate a Padre fan as we were, sometimes even more so. But here we are, opening day, tailgate, the traditional menu of hot dog, mustard, no ketchup. Right, Dodger fans? And we have the famous Trisha Montgomery. Where are you, Trisha? There she is. There's a 7-layer bean dip. That's traditional. And then, of course, the Hawaiian mac salad. So anyway, she, in 1984, it really kind of took off. Because we played the Cubs. We go to Chicago. We lose the first 2 games, come back. We're down 2-0. They win the first game. So it's now 2-1 in favor of Chicago. We play the second game. And then Steve Garvey, how many Padre fans? If you're really old, if you remember this. Bottom of the 9th, we're down a run. Steve Garvey comes up against Lee Smith. It's a 2-run walk-off home run. We're all jumping up and down. Debbie gets up and says, we're going to the game tomorrow. And this was before the internet. No online ticket purchase. If you wanted to get a ticket, you take your butt down to the stadium and stand in line. Okay? So here we are, it's 10 o'clock at night. The game's over, we're packing Deb's car up with folding chairs, blankets, jackets, snacks. She takes Jason down to the stadium with Jack Murphy at the time, for you old-time San Diego people. And they camp out. So the plan was to get 6 tickets, and each person in line was allowed to get 2. So she needed a 3rd person. So I had to go to work. So the plan was for me to take Jeremy the next morning, and he was like 6. So take him, drive down to the stadium, find them in the crowd, drop Jeremy off, and I go to work, and they stood in line. So the story is I come home, and they got their 6 tickets. But she gets up to the front of the line, and she says, a few people here, and I need 6 tickets. And the lady says, he's too young, he's not eligible for 2 tickets. We got the 6 tickets. You're not going to be denied. So we go to the 5th game, and they win. We go to the World Series, and then we got swept by Detroit. But anyway, yeah, we didn't even talk about that. So the '84 Cubs series was epic. And so here we are, and the picture on the left there. I think that's about 2010. Riley, you must be about 6 there, maybe 5, 6. And we're at a Cubs game. How can I tell that? Anybody know? You look at a T-shirt. It's the Cut Buster T-shirt that was all over the place in the '84 series. So you're talking 25, 26 years later. She loved wearing that whenever we played the Cubs. And every once in a while, some Cub fan would say, "Boy, you had to wear that T-shirt, didn't you?" She loved it. So that was her influence, right? I mean, there was no question. They were going down to get those tickets. So we moved forward to 2007. Tony Gwynn is inducted into the Hall of Fame. We're watching it on live TV, and he gets the call, kind of breaks down, and accepts the congratulations. Debbie says, "Okay, we got to go to the Hall of Fame induction." Of course, I said, "Are you nuts?" This is upstate New York, end of July. It's going to be hot, muggy, and there's going to be thousands of people there. Ended up there were 70,000 people. The largest crowd in history, because it was Tony Gwynn and Cal Ripken Jr. They were busing people in from Baltimore, Maryland, all over the East Coast. But she was right. Going was really one of those really life experiences. I'm so glad that I lost that argument. She was right. So that's the influence she had. And once she made up her mind, well, never mind. Okay. So we're up in 2007. Oops, sorry. So we get to 2010. Sorry, I'm trying to make it short, but there's a lot in the Padres section. 2010. No, sorry, 2008. We're in, it's April. We're at the Padres, we're at Petco. We're playing the Rockies. It's April, it's cold. And we get to the 7th inning, we do a 7th inning stretch. We get to the 9th inning, it's tied. There's no ghost runners back then. So we go into extra innings. We get to the 14th, we do our second 7th inning stretch, take me out to the ball game, the whole thing. Get to the 18th inning, it's still tied. So somebody in the Cooke family had this crazy rule that said, you never leave the game until the last out is made. I don't know who that was, but so we get to the 21st inning. We do our third 7th inning stretch, our third take me out to the ball game. I mean, the game started, there were about 25,000 people in there. By the third take me out to the ball game, there might have been 3,000 people there. And we were 2 of them. So we get to the 22nd inning, the Rockies score, we don't, and we lose. And you know, she never said, why did we do such a stupid thing? I mean, and that was just her. I mean, it was our thing, our bond, and she bought into it, you know. So it's really, I always tell people a lot, I'm so glad she's a Padres fan because it makes going to the game so much more enjoyable. And then we get to the golden age, what's now the golden age of Padre fans, if you're a Padre fan in local San Diego. So we get to 2022. And we're playing the Dodgers in the division series. And guess what? We beat them, and we eliminated them. And we're standing in a row where our regular season seats are. Jeremy was able to score, I don't know where he got them, and don't ask the price. And they got 2 seats in the row in front of us. So we were able to be together for that whole game and celebrate together. You know, as they say, that experience was priceless. And it's because she joined in and became a Padres fan, as I've mentioned, sometimes even crazier than I was. The 4 of us had this really strong bond, and it really meant a lot to be able to share that. Art, we talked about, it started when we were in Naples, and it went all the way through until our trip to Amsterdam, and even after that at home. But she loved working at the San Diego Museum of Art. She volunteered there for 15 years. And she just loved to interact with the guests and talk to them about art. They were passionate about it, she was too, and she just got a lot of enjoyment out of that. The other thing she loved even more was when the museum sponsored events for students, where they would bring these students in from various schools and give them art education, art appreciation. And she was especially touched when the kids came from the Monarch School, which is Joe still here? It's a school in downtown San Diego that's put there specifically for students from unhoused families. So here are these kids from that kind of environment, really into art, and she said she would just come home and be blown away by how talented they were in so many cases. And so that really touched her heart. So family, this is where, this was the focus of her life. Just pulling us together, establishing the environment, and really her just having a strong family bond was her idea of what it should be all about. Includes sports, of course, being the team mom, making the team banner back in the back. There's Jeremy on his T-ball team on the right. And she did, holidays. She didn't believe in going down to wherever to buy a costume. She ended up making her costumes, and this is just one of them. She did that almost every year. And the 2 pictures on the right, the key for me, she was just so willing to get involved and to support us, the 3 of us, in whatever we got involved in. And a lot of it was in sports, but in that case, Jason on the right there, about 12, I think, started really getting interested in surfing. And so we live 30 miles from the beach, right? We live in El Cajon. And so Dad would pack up Jason, his friends, their surfboards on the top, take them to the beach, drop them off to whichever beach had the best break, and then come back later on in the day to pick them up. Or first call Jason in to come on in, ready to go home, as he mentioned in his earlier speech. But by doing that, she was supporting him in his passion, and that passion turned into a lifelong passion. We're still, to this day, how many times did you surf last week? Oh, you were busy last week, right? But it's a weekly, it turned into a life passion, a life sport, life passion. And she was a big part in saying, hey, I'll take you down there, and I'll come pick you up. And the story is she makes you guys sandwiches sometime, right, for lunch? The other one, the one in the middle was Jeremy. He was 6 years old at this point. But at one of the baseball games that she was at, Debbie ended up talking to one of her friends. They told her about this program called Suzuki Violin, where they take these very young kids and teach them how to play the violin. So Jeremy had always been interested from a very young age, like 2 or 3 years old, really interested in music. So Debbie said, let's try it. So the couple unique things maybe about the Suzuki program. One is that the parent, a parent, is, or they can share it, but a parent is expected to be at every practice, in every lesson, and then obviously attend the recitals. So it's like, okay, the second rule is that for the student, you only need to practice on the days you eat. Think about that. So that means the mother, in this case, Debbie, was there convincing Jeremy to practice every day. It could be sometimes 15 minutes when he was really young, but then 30 minutes and something even later. And they had these recitals every, I don't know, year or so, and they had to do these tapes, record a tape of a piece, and have it judged, and they give you a pass or fail grade. And so there are a lot of not coercion, but a lot of bribery, a lot of convincing to practice. Jeremy mentioned earlier, baseball cards was a big deal when he got into baseball cards. Desserts, whatever she could think of. But she did that from when he was 4 until he was 14. So it's 10 years. And she would take a break, let him take a break on vacations when we went on vacation. But other than that, it was pretty much every day. And as a result, though, he's now his high school's math teacher, but his true passion is music. And he teaches guitar at the high school level. He's got recording studio. I mean, his whole life, music is such a big part of his life, playing with different groups around town. So again, by supporting her, she supported him. And unfortunately, while he was in the Suzuki program, it was all classical music. And the idea is that every day at dinner, you play classical music. And Jason had to sit there. Not his favorite genre of music. But he was good about it. Because she believed in supporting each other, whatever we're interested in. But anyway, okay. In addition to her devotion to her family, she really put a lot of commitment into staying in touch with extended family members, with friends, on special occasions, birthdays, whatever. And she always felt that calling the person or sending them a handwritten note or a handmade card would brighten that person's day. And it showed she wanted to just let that person know that she cared for her and she loved her. And she did that here, but also in the food she prepared for us and in so many other big and small ways. She just took care of us. She just really took such good care of us. And for that, we're so grateful. So she did these things, again, as I think Jason mentioned, she did these things because it just made her feel good. She wasn't looking to say, oh, thanks a lot or anything. It just made her feel good. And so for all of those acts of kindness, showing of love and caring, my remembrance of her will always be her ability to unconditionally love and care for people in her life. Thank you.
First off, I just want to say thank you to everybody here. It's pretty amazing to see just so many of you from all the different phases of life, our lives and my mom's life. And I mean, there's so many important people to her and to our family. And I know a lot of you came from far, and a lot of you, everybody, chose to move other things out of the way to be here. We really appreciate it. Really, really appreciate it. You were also special to my mom. So in thinking about how to put into words how special my mom was and what exactly to talk about today, there were really two things that flooded my mind. Number one was how incredibly well she loved those in her life and how many people that love touched. My dad touched on that as well. And number two was what an incredible mom she was to my brother and me. I spoke about the manner in which she loved others at the small graveside service we had this morning, and I plan to share kind of a condensed version of that with everybody here at the end. But first, I've tried to put into words kind of really what an amazing mom we were fortunate enough to have. For starters, I feel like my mom was literally born to be a mom. I'm sure she had to work at it, but being a mom just seemed to come so natural to her, and she found such joy in that role in our family. She really seemed to be in her element as a mom, and really for that matter as a grandma too. And as I reflected on how blessed I was to be her son, what really stood out to me was not only how good she was at it, but also how well she adjusted during the different chapters of my life. While I was living at home, basically my childhood through high school, my mom was ever present and always building me up. She showered me with love and encouragement and showed up consistently in literally every area of my life. She volunteered at school, made me elaborate birthday cakes, made Halloween costumes. My dad showed a couple. She sat in the stands for thousands and thousands of hours cheering me and my brother on playing sports. My dad referenced this too. She drove my friends and I to the beach to go surfing countless times. She would divvy up the rolls with my friends' parents as well. And we kind of hoofed it as inlanders to the beach and what really became, like my dad said, a passion for my life. So I have her to thank for that. Just so many great memories. And she hosted friends for sleepovers, made family dinners, an absolute non-negotiable, which was, I think, very shaping in our family. And at the end of each day, probably till I was much too old, she would tuck me into bed at night, making sure I knew how much she loved me. To this day, without a doubt, I know that her constant, reassuring, loving presence really served as a foundation for my life. After my years at home, I headed off to college, which I know was hard for my mom based on rereading letters she had written to me and based on my own experience sending my girls off to college. You know, no matter how happy you are for them, your kids kind of leave home with a chunk of your heart. And what strikes me about my mom during those college years, though, is that even though I had a little bit too much fun in college and wasn't probably the best version of myself, especially in the early years, she really trusted who I was at the core, and she continued to love and support me as she always had, and she really gave me room to figure things out, which I'm super grateful for. She had somehow an incredible wisdom and ability to adjust, to the different chapters. I still felt supported and loved in the same way I always had, but I never felt smothered during those college years. And finally, during the ensuing years, when I graduated college, got married, had my own family, my mom adjusted yet again, kind of in her infinite wisdom. She and my dad were always so understanding of the importance of juggling both sides of the family when it came to holidays and other family obligations. They never put pressure on us. Seemed to always just joyfully embrace the time we had together, which I think is unique and hard to do. My mom and dad have always been an integral part of our life and our family, but they never forced their way in or made us feel guilty when the logistics didn't work out to be together. I know that couldn't have been easy for my mom because I think she probably would have wanted to be by our sides every second of every day, but it was so appreciated. And along those lines, actually kind of one of the meaningful things in preparing for today that I got to do was just kind of reread letters and cards from my mom. And one that I read in particular in preparing to speak today was written to me in my last year of college, just before graduation. And in it, my mom said, "Your dreams are our dreams, and your happiness is our joy." And for my mom, I feel like those weren't just words, that's exactly how she supported and loved Missy, the girls, and me for the last 3 years. Your dreams are our dreams, and your happiness is our joy. Just such a wise and selfless perspective. And it's just a great example, really, of the many layers of my mom. I couldn't have dreamed of a better mom. She was truly the best. Okay, so to pivot a little bit, I did want to talk not just about my mom loving me as her son, but her superhuman way of loving all of those in her life. That was really the main thing I spoke about this morning at the graveside service, because for me, it's really the defining characteristic of her life. To try to articulate the way in which my mom loved others, I share a passage from the Bible. It's a passage that you may recognize, many of you may recognize this because it's quoted often in weddings, but I thought it was really appropriate for today's occasion as well. It talks about the importance of love and the manner in which love reveals itself. The passage is from the book of Corinthians, and it says this: "Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but it rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails." Rather than being a passage to aspire to, like many young couples do on the cusp of getting married, what really struck me about this verse in the context of my mom was that it's also a measuring stick at the end of life for how well someone loved. And wow, did my mom love well. She really didn't miss the mark on any of the attributes of love described in the passage. It's truly remarkable. Some get a few, others get many. My mom, she hit them all. At the graveside service, I elaborate on the descriptors of love in the passage and how my mom embodied each one. But for the larger group, I felt it would be most fitting just to focus on love is kind. I think a lot of you have experienced that, those of you that are here. Love being kind goes without saying for anyone who ever met my mom and was loved on by her. I feel like she literally used kindness everywhere she went. For me, her kindness showed up in her warm smile, her firm hugs, her words of affirmation and love, which were never ending, and her incredible thoughtfulness. To this day, it's astonishing to me how she never missed a birthday or special occasion for so many people. Her cards and letters with uplifting and encouraging words and the gifts that would accompany them were such an outpouring for kindness. And what's so heartwarming and inspiring looking back is to know how her small acts of kindness left a mark on so many. As one example, during the last weeks of her life, I was in communication with one of my mom and dad's neighbors. The neighbor shared with me this story, which is incredibly touching and captures the essence of what my mom meant to so many. The neighbor texted me the following, and keep in mind while I'm reading this that the neighbor's children were aware of my mom's declining health. She went on to say, "A story to share. Your mom always offered the kids sweet treats in the form of $5 Baskin-Robbins gift cards throughout the years. And on this past Valentine's Day weekend, they wanted to get ice cream, and each grabbed their card. And so we headed to Baskin-Robbins. When it was time to pay, they just couldn't bear to part with the physical cards given to them by Miss Debbie. So they asked to use their own money instead and to save the cards. For until when, I don't know. I can't even type this without crying. She's truly so special." And for me, this one really hit me hard because it's so simple and so pure. but just leave such a mark. And that's just kind of how my mom was. And the collective impact of the many small acts of kindness doled out by mom over her life were just staggering. So to try to wrap this up, the passage I read ends by saying about love that it always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. Because of my mom, that's the love that blanketed me my entire life. How incredibly blessed I am to have been loved the way I was by my mom, and how fortunate we all are to have been the recipient of that incredible love. My mom was in a class of her own when it came to loving others. I'm forever grateful for that. And it's the legacy she leaves behind in all of us, really, to carry on in the way that she did while with us. She truly lived a life to be celebrated, cherished, and emulated. And I thank you guys, thank everybody so much for being here and to help honor her.
Hello, thank you everybody for coming. Thanks for my dad and brothers. Great speeches. My mom was amazing. She was, caring, supportive, fun person. When I looked back through all the photos we were trying to put together, things, she was fun. She would, she was never a wet blanket for some event. If you wanted to do something, she would do it. And she was happy. She was a positive person, which is, not always the most common characteristic of someone. So she really led her life with love for all of us, but also with a joy and optimism about the world. She was all those things, and she was passionate, but she could get angry. Most of you, some of you maybe don't know. Those of you who've seen my dad on a soccer field can know he gets angry too. Some former players in the, two former players in the audience. But the only time I ever had my mouth washed out with soap was my mother. I can still remember her hoisting me up above the sink, and it was a Dove bar. I don't remember what I said, but she raked it on my teeth, so I had soap on the inside of my teeth. And we were in the townhouses, so I was maybe 7 or 6. I don't remember what I said. Also, the only time I was spanked in public, I think maybe more than once, was my mom, I believe. I don't remember my dad spanking us in public. So, but in my adult life, I was reflecting on our relationship, and it was amazing. And I never kind of took stock of it, but we never had I can't remember an argument we had. Not to say that she didn't disagree with me, or there was one time she left Cal Poly on my graduation without speaking to me, so, and that involved the police. But nothing bad, but she was very upset at that. But as far as an argument, I mean, that's remarkable to me. So just the super loving, some people know that incident. I fell asleep on a lawn. I was tired. My graduation night. So she, like I said, she could get upset, and she didn't always like everybody. Particularly some Padres. Trevor Hoffman, not a fan. You pack up your locker twice, and then you leave and go to the Brewers, not a fan. Sure, he was good, but he's no Tony, Bob Melvin, Really did not like him. And it was funny because my mom had dementia, she had vascular dementia, and so it was for several years that, she started to repeat things more, and she'd forget some things, but didn't forget others. And so one night it was, you're always kind of gauging where she was mentally. And I was thinking, maybe mom's declining, and she goes, yeah, I really like Mike Schilt, the manager. He's much better than Melvin or Tingler or Green and I'm thinking, geez, I couldn't even remember. I couldn't rattle off all the Padres managers in that order so quickly. She was definitely a huge Padres fan, like all of us. And one funny story. After she passed, my good friend Candy, my dad talked about how she went to see Martha Stewart, and what he didn't say was that on the whole drive there, she was complaining to Candy about Tony Gwynn's weight and saying, he really needs to think of the team, which really cracked me up. One thing that I'm really proud of about my mom is that she was really progressive as a person. Her parents were great. I loved my grandpapa, they're great people, but they grew up in they were born in the 20s. And was it 20s? Teens, okay? So just think back to those times. And they were great people, but my mom really latched on to the civil rights movement and studying black authors when she was at San Diego State. And she was also very pro-gay marriage. And she would say it many times when we were at dinner. I'd go over for dinner, like once a week or something. And many times, she said, if two people love each other and want to get married, why shouldn't they be able to? And so, her love and kindness extended beyond just her family and the less fortunate, and she would donate her time tutoring kids at Rolando how to read. And she was a good person. Some funny facts about her. She never said the F word. Not once. Unless you heard it. I don't know if you can report that she did, I'll document it. I don't know if I believe it, but she'd say an occasional shit. No F word, not once. She only sent one email in her life. And I went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and our motto at the school is learn by doing. And so I was, I set her at the keyboard upstairs in their bedroom where they had the computer, and started walking her through, open the account, and okay, now you're gonna click up here. It was well over an hour that we sent that one email. And there was no more. She was a loving dog owner of Rusty, who she'd walk every day. The whole neighborhood knew her for decades of walking, and she didn't just walk. It was if she walked at her pace, it was not enjoyable. It'd be better to jog. But she, for decades, up and down the hills, and when she had Rusty, she'd walk him. Rusty had diabetes at one point, and she had to give him insulin shots twice a day for years. she was also a loving caretaker for her father, who had dementia as well, and really, you know, put a ton of time and effort and love into caring for him, which was not easy. So, yeah, I mean, my mom was great. And I guess one thing I thought of was, she was great, and, you know, it's great to have memories of her. But that's in the past, you know? And so what can we do to keep her memory alive or honor her? And so I made some recipe cards here, which these were lovingly printed by the Fonseca Design Shop. If you need printing needs, go to La Mesa. He's not here, he couldn't be here, he was traveling, but his parents are here. So if you need printing needs in La Mesa, Fonseca Design. He comped us for the things, even though we offered to pay, so I'm trying to repay him now. He did the beautiful picture here. He's a great guy. Give him a call. So these are recipe cards. One side is a mocha pie, which is a classic that my mom would make, and I want to make a note. Oreo cookies is what she would do for years, because that's what they have in the stores. But it's too sweet. It's a little sweet for me. I'm not a big. So on the recipe, I was very interested. It says 18, and this is the first thing. It says 18 crust Hydrox cookies. They're harder to get, but I did research online. You can't. So they're going to be less sweet. If you really want to honor her, order the online Hydrox. It's still good with Oreo, but. And then on the other side is a ginger cream recipe, which I baked, I think, enough cookies for everyone. And it says to make these on her birthday, July 15th, you know, in her memory. And then if you really want to honor her, you know, do something nice for someone, volunteer your time or something like that. Last but not least, I want to recognize my dad for caring for my mom. For many years. And so lovingly. And he never complained. And he said that, you know, he was just honoring his vows, and he knew that if he was in the same boat, my mom would have done the same. So we can't thank you enough, Dad. So I have cookies.
I wanted to add one comment on the ginger cream recipe. It's handwritten, and there's a note there. Please call me if you have any questions. There's a number. So at this point, I'd welcome any other family member if you want to share any remembrances. Okay, Paul.
Good. You made one too.
Debbie's a real hard act to follow. Pete and I didn't come close. We loved Debbie very much, and she was in a league of her own, really. My parents never came right out and said they liked Debbie best, but Pete and I knew it was easy. I mean, how could you not like Debbie best? I mean, Pete was in second place, and I was a distant third. You know, we'd come home from school, Pete and Pete would have there'd be a note in front of his, where he sat at the dining room table, and it would say, Pete, cookies in the cookie tin, help yourself to some milk, love Mom. And the note to me would say, Paul, trash, Mom. So I was a distant third, but Debbie, I just felt like she had, out of everybody in the whole world, Debbie had two brothers. And Peter and I were the lucky ones to be Debbie's sister. To be Debbie's brothers. And, I often pinch myself and say, I can't believe we have a sister like Debbie. I remember when we were kids, she would call Pete and I boy, and she'd say, boy, can I make you a peanut butter sandwich? And usually we'd say yes, but every now and then if we'd just eaten or something, we'd say, no thanks, Deb. And she would just hang her head and look really sad because we didn't say, yes, please make us a sandwich, because she just loved doing it. It was pure joy for Debbie to do that. And that just, I'm not telling you anything you haven't heard today but I think everybody in this room that knows Debbie knows how true it is. Truer words were never spoken, that Debbie just had the kindest heart, and went all out, and as others have said, before me, everyone that spoke before me, that she did it out of the kindness of her heart. She never wanted anything in return or even thought about anything in return. She just enjoyed doing it. That was her gift to herself, is making other people happy. And Debbie was the most thoughtful person I've ever known. Just amazing. I remember when we were kids, and her best friend growing up in San Diego was Sandy Evans. I'm not sure if there's Sandy. Yeah. And Sandy would come over to, or Debbie would run over to Sandy's house. They were 2 doors down. Sandy was 2 doors down from us. And I guess knock on the door of the screen and sing Bluebirds Blue. And when Sandy came over to our house, Sandy would sing Robin Red. And we used to just love hearing Debbie and Sandy and their cheerful voices. Now, time goes so quickly, and I remember when I was probably about 14. Pete and I were about 13, 14 years old. We were sitting at the dinner table. And I said, Dad, hey, Dad, has your life gone by fast? And he just went like that, like that. And at 14, it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but at 74, it makes a ton of sense. And, Debbie, I always thought Debbie would live to be 150 because she did everything right. She ate right, she exercised, she didn't smoke. She was a very moderate, glass of wine every now and then. She just did everything right. And So it's still hard for me to come to terms with the fact that Debbie's not with us. And when I was a little kid, being 78, you know, you lived a pretty good long life. But now that I'm 74, 78 doesn't seem so old. It actually seems kind of young. Wait until you're 74,
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. So it goes by fast, and I guess the moral of the story is just, you know, just love your friends and family when you can, you know, as long as you can, because you never know what's going to happen, and you never know when it's going to happen. Our little boy, Perry, I went in and said goodnight to him last night. He and my wife couldn't be here today, unfortunately. They wish they could have been. But I said goodnight, kissed Harry goodnight, and as I was walking out of the room, he said, "Dad," I turned around and said, "Could you please say something from me about Aunt Debbie?" And I just wanted you to know that Harry wanted me to let Aunt Debbie know that he loved her very much, and Aunt Debbie would always smile when she was around and make everything fun, as you can all imagine. And on Harry's birthdays, boy, the number of gifts she could get in a box is just absolutely amazing, you know. And of course, baseball cards, you know, that's, you know, Debbie would always send Harry and myself, because I've always collected them and still do, always send us a pack of baseball cards. And, you know, Tammy wanted to share the same, how much she loved Debbie and how my wife and how kind Debbie always was to her and welcomed her into her family, and just, you know, just Debbie being Debbie. And for those of you that haven't tried these ginger creams, boy, that's, Harry just, he looked forward to them every birthday, and we all did, you know, we always got ginger creams, and that was our Nani's original recipe, and Debbie took it and ran with it, and Debbie was really the second coming of our Nani. And because Nani was exactly like Debbie, just kind and sweet and giving, and loved cooking and baking, and you know, our mom, she told me once that she hated cooking, but she never complained about it. She always, you know, my mom was a great cook too. With Debbie, I think with Jeremy there was a little bit of fake news going on there, because I never heard Debbie swear, and I failed to recognize the fact that she may have.
No F word.
Yeah. And she, in my whole life, I never heard Debbie raise her voice, not a single time. And, you know, I wish people could say the same about me, but that's not going to happen, you know. So anyway, I'm just so grateful to be Debbie's brother. And I know Peter would say the same, and is saying the same in heaven for, you know, about Debbie. And there's a great reunion up there right now with Mom and Dad and Debbie and Peter and all the loved ones that have passed, Nani and Grandpa, and but I'm gonna miss her. Boy, I'm gonna miss her. Her sweet voice. Every single time I ever called Debbie up on the phone, every single time, without exception, I'd say, "Hi, Deb, how you doing?" And she'd always say, "Good." And every single time. So one time I said to her, "Debbie, you either have the keys to the kingdom, or you're in complete denial." And I said, "But I think you've got the keys to the kingdom." And I really believe that, because Debbie just had such a great positive outlook on life, and was just so happy to be a part of things. Couldn't ask for a better sister. I don't think one exists. Thank you very much.
Before we start eating, things in the, like my dad, like I said, really cared for my mom, and things were difficult at times, and they got more difficult. And I really wanted to recognize two amazing people who made our lives so much better in the end, and that's Karina and her sister Claudia, who couldn't be here today, but we are so grateful for them and what they did in home care for us. It was unbelievable, the love that they showed to my mom. So let's please give a round of applause to Karina and Claudia, who couldn't be here.
If you'd allow me, I'd like, my sister would like to say a few words. And after that, the food's ready, and so we'll close with this. And let me just say a few words after she finishes.
Thank you. I'm Richard, or Dick. I'll call you Dick. It's Dick's sister from Hawaii. The Debbie you described so lovingly and kindly today at the graveside service and here is the Debbie we knew. We didn't see her often physically because we live in Hawaii, but as you all know, she kept in touch. On our birthdays, we got cards. On special occasions, she kept in touch. And so, this is the Debbie we'll always remember. And we wanted to say, as in Hawaii, we say, aloha oi, farewell to you, Debbie. Aloha oi.
Okay, thank you again, everyone, for joining us and celebrating Deb's life and honoring her. We really, really appreciate it. And now we can start. The food's being served out there. The bar's back there, so please enjoy. Celebrate for Deb. Celebrate for all.
Hostess already has the bar.
Huh?
Free drinks.
Yeah. Open bar. Open bar. Thank you very much.
We're so ready. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Okay. Thank you.